My name is Olivia Chen. I'm 28, and I'm the family failure, because I stayed home while my siblings built empires. I'm writing this down like a note to my future self, so I never forget the moment I realized my family saw my sacrifice as nothing more than free labor. You ever give up everything for the people you love, only to discover they never counted any of it as real work? While my brother Marcus climbed the corporate ladder at a tech firm in San Francisco, and my sister Claire opened her own law practice in Boston, I stayed behind in our childhood home in Maplewood, watching our father die piece by piece. Parkinson's disease doesn't kill quickly. It steals slowly, leaving a ghost where your loved one used to be, someone who needs round-the-clock care but is no longer entirely there. I was 23 when Dad got diagnosed. Fresh out of college with a psychology degree, dreaming of graduate school. Marcus was already making six figures. Claire was in her second year of law school. Our youngest sister, Sophie, was finishing her undergrad. And when the family gathered to discuss the situation, everyone had the same answer: I can't put my career on hold right now. So I did. I moved back into my childhood bedroom. I learned to crush pills into applesauce, transfer a grown man from wheelchair to bed without hurting him, smile and say, "It's okay, Dad," when he forgot my name for the third time that day. I learned the particular hell of watching someone you love become a stranger in their own skin. My siblings visited Thanksgiving, Christmas, sometimes Easter, if their schedules allowed. They'd walk through the door with expensive wine and stories about promotions, deals, vacations in Greece and Thailand. They'd hug Dad, tell him he looked good, and then retreat to the kitchen to talk about their lives while I reheated the casserole I'd made with the last $40 in my checking account. "You're so good at this," Claire said once, watching me help Dad with his medication. She said it like it was a compliment. Like being good at watching your father disappear was some kind of gift. The money ran out faster than anyone expected. Dad's insurance covered some costs, but not the home modifications, the special equipment, or the private nurse we needed twice a week so I could sleep more than 4 hours straight. I drained my savings first. Then I sold my car and started using Dad's old sedan. Then I started putting medical bills on credit cards I knew I couldn't pay off. I asked for help once. I sent a detailed email to the family group chat explaining everything, attaching bills, breaking down exactly what we needed. Marcus sent back $2,000 and a note. "Hope this helps. Big project at work, can't do more right now." Claire sent $1,000 and, "Wish I could do more, but student loans are killing me." Sophie, still in college, sent an apology and a heart emoji. The medical bills that month? $7,400. I missed Sophie's wedding because Dad had pneumonia. I missed Marcus's promotion celebration because I couldn't afford the plane ticket. I missed my own 27th birthday because I was too tired to care. My college friends stopped inviting me places. My ex-boyfriend, the one I thought I'd marry, left me because this isn't the life I signed up for. I watched my entire future shrink down to the four walls of my father's bedroom and the rotation of pills at 8 a.m., noon, 4 p.m., and bedtime. Dad died on a Tuesday morning in March. I was holding his hand. No one else made it in time. Before I tell you exactly what happened at the will reading and what my siblings said that made me walk away from them forever, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm really curious to see how far this story will travel, because what happened next, I never saw coming. The will reading was scheduled for 2 weeks after Dad's funeral. Marcus flew in from San Francisco in a suit that probably cost more than I'd spent on groceries in 6 months. Claire arrived from Boston, clutching her designer handbag and flashing that lawyer smile she'd perfected over years of negotiations. Sophie drove up from Philadelphia, quieter than the other two, but still orbiting their world. I showed up in the same black dress I'd worn to the funeral, the only dress I owned that still fit after 5 years of stress eating and forgetting to eat in equal measure. Dad's lawyer, Mr. Hendricks, sat at the head of the conference table in his small office on Main Street. The air smelled of old books and lemon polish. My siblings sat on one side of the table. I sat alone on the other. Perfectly symbolic. Mr. Hendricks cleared his throat and began reading. The house, the one I'd lived in for 5 years while caring for Dad, the one I'd kept afloat with my own money, was to be sold. Proceeds divided equally. Then came the investment accounts. Dad had been meticulous with money before he got sick. The accounts, totaling roughly $340,000, were divided differently. Marcus 35%, Claire 35%, Sophie 25%, me 5%, $17,000 for 5 years of my life. My hands went numb. Mr. Hendricks explained that Dad had structured it this way because Olivia has been living rent-free and will benefit from the house sale, while her siblings pursued careers and deserve recognition for their financial independence. Financial independence. That's what we were calling it. Marcus actually smiled. Claire nodded like it made perfect sense. Sophie stared at her hands. Any questions? Mr. Hendricks asked. I had 1,000, but my throat refused to cooperate. We walked out into the parking lot. That's when Marcus said it loud enough for all of us to hear. Well, at least now Liv can get back to her real life. 5 years of just keeping the house afloat, that must have been so boring. Just keeping the house afloat. Claire laughed. Actually laughed. Honestly, Olivia, this is probably good for you. Now you'll have to actually build a career instead of hiding out in Maplewood. Hiding out. Sophie said nothing. She looked at me with something that might have been pity, and somehow, that stung worse than their cruelty. I stood there in the parking lot, keys to Dad's old sedan in my hand, watching my siblings climb into their rental cars. They were meeting for dinner at a fancy Italian place downtown. No invitation for me, not that it mattered, I couldn't have afforded my half anyway. That night, I sat in the house that was now partially mine but would soon be sold, and opened my laptop. The family group chat had been buzzing all evening. Marcus. Good to have that settled. Clean division. Claire. Dad knew what he was doing. Fair is fair. Sophie. Yeah, Marcus. Olivia, you there? No hard feelings, right? You got the house value plus your share. That's not nothing. I stared. The house value I'd maintained on my credit cards. The $17,000 for 5 years of unpaid labor, for watching Dad die alone while they built shiny lives. Claire. Honestly, maybe now you'll be motivated to do something with your life. This could be a blessing in disguise. A blessing. I took screenshots of everything, the conversation, the will summary, the 5 years of unanswered pleas for help with bills and updates on Dad's condition. I saved it all in a folder labeled, Receipts. Then I poured myself a glass of wine from the cheap bottle I'd bought to cook with. My hands shook so hard I spilled it on the counter. Have you ever had that moment when you realize your family doesn't see you as a person, just as a role they never had to fill themselves? When suffering is nothing but convenience. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table and felt something inside me break clean in half. After the will reading, my alarm didn't go off. There was nothing to wake up for anymore. No medications to distribute, no breakfast to prepare for someone who'd forget he'd eaten it. No appointments to coordinate, just silence. And the question, what the hell am I supposed to do now? I sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and a pen. At the top, I drew a line down the middle. Left side, stay connected. Right side, cut ties. Dramatic, like something out of a movie. But I needed it, proof that I wasn't crazy for considering it. Under stay connected, they're still my family. Maybe they'll understand eventually. Sophie seemed uncomfortable. Avoiding them makes me look bitter. Undercut ties. 5 years of my life equals $17,000. Just keeping the house afloat. Hiding out in Maplewood. They never helped when I begged. They laughed in the parking lot. I can't breathe around them anymore. The right side filled faster. No more performing gratitude for scraps. No more pretending their success didn't come at my expense. Space to figure out who I am without them. Peace, peace. I underlined it 3 times. My phone buzzed. Family group chat. Marcus. Talked to a realtor. House could list next month. Everyone good with that timeline? Claire. Works for me. Sooner the better. Marcus. Olivia needs to clear out Dad's stuff anyway. She's been living there, so that's her job. Her job. More unpaid labor. Claire. Makes sense. Liv, can you handle the estate sale too? You know what everything is. I stared at the messages. Cold settled in my chest. My friend Jordan called. She'd stayed in touch during the worst years, sending memes and cat videos. How'd it go? I told her everything. The will, the parking lot, the group chat, silence. Liv, she finally said, why are you still talking to these people? They're my family. Family doesn't do that. Family doesn't watch you drown and then complain you got their shoes wet. I looked at my list. I don't know if I can just cut them off. Can you keep doing this? She asked. Spend the rest of your life watching them succeed with the time you gave them, and pretend that's okay? I couldn't answer. That evening, 3 more messages came. Marcus, also Liv, Dad's car is pretty old. You should probably just donate it. Not worth trying to sell. The car I'd been driving for 4 years because I sold mine to pay his medical bills. Claire. Agreed. Just get rid of anything not worth the hassle. We don't need junk. Sophie. I wrote at the bottom of the right column in capital letters, I choose me. Then I muted the group chat for a year. My finger hovered over Marcus's contact. Then Claire's. Blocked. Sophie I left unblocked. Her silence felt different. Maybe I wasn't ready to lose everyone at once. I slept. For the first time in weeks, I actually slept. Next morning, a text from Sophie. Are you okay? I typed and deleted 4 times before settling on, I will be. She didn't respond, but she read it. That was enough. Sold in 6 weeks. I used my portion of the sale plus inheritance to clear my credit card debt and walk away with $43,000. Not an empire, but it was mine. I moved to Pittsburgh, not far enough to run, but far enough to avoid seeing anyone from my old life at the grocery store. I rented a small apartment in Lawrenceville, brick walls, questionable heating, big windows, it was mine. With what was left, I did something I dreamed of during the worst nights of caregiving. I started a business. Nothing fancy. A consulting service for families navigating elder care. I'd lived it. I knew every trap, hidden cost, and moment the system failed and families fractured. I called it Invisible Labor Solutions. The first 3 months were brutal. 1 client, then 2, then none for 3 weeks. Ramen dinners, self-doubt, questions I couldn't answer. Then a social worker referred someone, who referred 2 more. Slowly, carefully, something began to grow. I made a friend, Diana, who ran a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment. Blunt, honest, fresh air after years of passive aggression. Your siblings sound like assholes, she said one morning. They're complicated, I said automatically. Nope, just assholes. First time someone gave me permission to be angry. 6 months later, I ran into Sophie at Target. Visiting a friend. We stared across the home goods aisle like ghosts. Olivia, she said. Sophie, we got coffee. Actual coffee. No family performance. She looked tired. Marcus and Claire ask about you sometimes, she said. They don't understand why you won't respond. Do you? I asked. Quiet. Then, yeah, I think I do. She told me things I hadn't known. Mom asking about me at family dinners. Relatives noticing I was missing in photos. Marcus calling me dramatic. They're embarrassed, she said. But they'd never admit it. Good, I said, and meant it. Sophie smiled sadly. You seem different. Better. I'm building something, I said. Something that's mine. We exchanged numbers, the real kind of exchange, not the childhood performance. My business grew. Slowly, then suddenly. I hired an assistant, then another. Wrote guides, blog posts, resources for caregivers. Messages poured in. This saved me. I thought I was the only one. For the first time as an adult, I woke up and didn't feel like I owed anyone an apology for existing. Where do you find the people who finally see your worth? The ones who don't need you to shrink so they can shine? After a particularly hard day with a client whose family reminded me too much of my own, I opened my laptop and started typing. Not a business guide this time. Just the truth. I wrote about invisible labor. About the daughter who stays while everyone else builds careers on the time she gave them. About being erased from your own family story while keeping everyone else's story possible. I wrote about a will reading where 5 years of sacrifice equaled 5% while financial independence earned 35. I didn't use names. I didn't mention Maplewood or Pittsburgh or even Pennsylvania. But I wrote the exact words Marcus had said, just keeping the house afloat. I wrote about Claire's laughter in the parking lot. I titled it, The Inheritance They'll Never Acknowledge, How Caregivers Subsidize Everyone Else's Success. I published it on Medium at 2 a.m., anonymous, expecting maybe my friend Deanna and 3 other people to read it. By morning, it had 300 views. By that evening, 3,000. By the end of the week, 47,000. The comments section became a support group I didn't know existed. My brother got the inheritance while I got the medical debt from caring for mom. They called it financial independence, like I chose to be poor by staying home. I've been looking for these words for 6 years. Someone shared it in a caregivers forum. Then a grief support group. Then it jumped to Twitter, where a blue checkmark account with 200,000 followers posted. This essay about invisible caregiving labor should be required reading. The audacity of families who inherit both the money and the time their siblings sacrificed. That's when it reached Maplewood. Sophie texted me, Liv, did you write something online? People keep sending mom this article about a will reading and caregiving, and she's losing her mind. My heart stopped. Then, she doesn't know it's you. But she knows. You know? A number I didn't recognize called. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened later, it was Claire's voice, tight and furious. Olivia, I don't know if you're involved in this article that's going around, but people are asking questions. This is humiliating for the family. We need to talk. Call me back. Not, are you okay? Not, did we hurt you? Just concern about humiliation. I saved the voicemail in a folder labeled, Receipts Part 2. Marcus sent an email to my old address, the one I'd forgotten to close. If you're behind this internet nonsense, you need to stop. You're making us all look bad over a misunderstanding. Dad structured his will for good reasons. You got the house benefit. Stop playing victim. I read it 3 times, waiting to feel guilty. Instead, I felt vindicated. A local Pittsburgh storytelling organization called Voices Unheard reached out through my business email. They were hosting an event about family trauma and systemic caregiving inequality. Would I be interested in speaking? I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. The night of the event, 40 people packed into a community center in Bloomfield. I stood at a microphone with shaking hands and told my story out loud for the first time with my real voice, my real face. I told them about the will reading. About just keeping the house afloat. About 5 years equaling $17,000 while my siblings' careers, built on my time, earned them hundreds of thousands. I asked the question that had haunted me. Have you ever been erased from your own family's story while simultaneously making that story possible? Hands went up across the room. Someone was crying. When I finished, people hugged me. A woman whispered, I thought I was selfish for resenting my sister's medical degree. She got to go to school because I stayed home with our dad. Thank you. Someone filmed it. By the next morning, a clip was on TikTok with 89,000 views. In the comments, I saw a username that made my blood run cold. Sophie_Chen_official. She'd written, sometimes the successful ones just learned how to perform while others were surviving. The caregivers subsidized everyone else's dreams. My baby sister had just publicly validated my story. Within hours, the article got shared again, this time with context. The daughter who spoke at Voices Unheard is the same essayist. Her family is from PA and people who know them are putting pieces together. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. This time I answered. Olivia. It was my mother's voice, and she sounded small. People are talking. They're saying terrible things about our family. About how we treated you. This needs to stop. I never used your names, I said quietly. Everyone knows, she hissed. The Hendersons asked me at church if I was the mother from that essay. Do you know how that feels? Yes, I said, I do. Silence. Actually, Mom, I know exactly how it feels to be humiliated in public. I felt it in a parking lot after Dad's will reading when Marcus said I'd just been keeping the house afloat. She hung up. By in a way that didn't feel dramatic from the inside. There was no climactic confrontation, no tearful reunion. Just a series of days where I woke up, ran my business, helped families avoid the traps I'd fallen into, and came home to an apartment that felt like mine. Invisible labor solutions grew beyond what I'd imagined. I hired 3 full-time consultants. We contracted with 2 hospitals and a senior living network. I spoke at conferences about caregiver economics and systemic family inequity. My anonymous essay had become a cited reference in academic papers about unpaid labor. The business gave me something I'd never had, security that didn't depend on anyone's approval. I kept writing, too. Shorter pieces, mostly. Blog posts about boundaries, about the strange guilt that follows you when you choose yourself, about how to rebuild when your family treats your absence like betrayal instead of consequence. Every few months, Sophie and I would meet halfway between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. We'd get dinner and talk about safe things, her graduate program, my business, the weather. Sometimes we'd talk about the family. Through her, I learned Marcus had gotten married. Claire made partner at her firm. Mom had moved to a smaller house after complaining the family home had too many memories. She tells people you moved away for work, Sophie said once, pushing pasta around her plate. She can't admit you chose to leave. Does she ever? I trailed off. Say she's sorry? Sophie finished. No, but she asks about you. In this weird, sideways way. Like she's waiting for you to apologize for embarrassing her. The update I wasn't expecting came on a random Tuesday. Sophie called instead of texted, which meant something was wrong. Mom's sick, she said without preamble. They found something during a routine scan. Ovarian cancer. Stage 3. My hands went numb, the same way they had at the will reading. She starts chemo next month, Sophie continued. It's aggressive. The doctor said she'll need help. Like, a lot of help. There it was. The unspoken question hovering in the air between us. Marcus and Claire are talking about hiring a care service, Sophie said carefully. But it's expensive. Mom's insurance doesn't cover everything. They're already arguing about who should contribute what. And they want to know if I'll help, I said flatly. Marcus asked me to reach out. He said, and I quote, if Olivia really cared about family, she'd step up now. This is what matters. If I really cared. The same man who'd gotten 35% of an inheritance built on my unpaid labor was questioning whether I cared. What do you think I should do? I asked Sophie. She was quiet for a long time. I think you've already done more than anyone knows. You kept us all afloat when Dad was dying. You paid for things you couldn't afford. You sacrificed your entire 20s. Mom never counted any of that when she stayed silent at that will reading. Marcus and Claire mocked you in a parking lot. Her voice cracked. I don't think you owe them a rescue. I think you owe yourself peace. She's going to call me cruel, I whispered. She called your life's work just keeping the house afloat, Sophie said. I don't think her definition of cruel is one you should trust. Up, I sat on my couch and stared at the wall. The old version of me, the one who'd stayed in Maplewood and swallowed every humiliation because that's what family meant, flickered to life for just a moment. I pictured my mother going through what my father went through. I pictured her scared and sick and needing help. Then I pictured Marcus at the will reading, smiling. Claire laughing in the parking lot. The group chat where they'd called my grief dramatic. 2 days later, Marcus called from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Olivia, it's Marcus. I know we haven't talked in a while, but Mom's situation is serious. She's going to need family support. Real support. We need to discuss how you're going to contribute. Call me back. How I was going to contribute. Not, will you? Not, we'd appreciate your help. A demand dressed as inevitability. I didn't call back. It arrived on a Saturday. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting on the label before I even opened it. Inside was a small wooden box I remembered from childhood, the one that had held my grandmother's jewelry. And a letter. I sat on my couch with my hands shaking and made myself read it. Olivia, I know I wasn't a perfect mother, but you've misunderstood so much of what I tried to do. Everything I did was to push you to be better, to not settle for less than you were capable of. I only wanted what was best for you. You've hurt me deeply by taking our private family business and making it public. People look at me differently now. I can't even go to church without wondering who's read that article, who's whispering about what kind of mother I am. You have no idea what it's like to have your own daughter humiliate you. I'm sick now, really sick, the kind of sick that makes you think about what matters. And what matters is family. I know you're angry about the will, but your father made those decisions for good reasons. Your siblings worked hard for their success. You chose to stay home, that was your choice. After everything I did for you, the least you could do is help me in my time of need. Marcus and Claire have their own lives and responsibilities. You have flexibility with your little business. This is what family does. We show up. I'm asking you to come home. No, I'm sorry. No acknowledgement of what she'd allowed to happen at that will reading, what she'd stayed silent for. Just, you misunderstood, and, after everything I did for you. That last line sat on the page like a dare. I picked up my phone and called Jordan. She sent you a guilt letter, Jordan said after I read it to her. Classic. She's really sick, I said. Stage 3 cancer. That's not manipulation. That's real. Her cancer is real, Jordan agreed. But so is what she did to you. So is 5 years of your life for 5% of an inheritance. So is, just keeping the house afloat. Both things can be true, Liv. I grabbed the same notebook that had my stay, cut ties list from 2 years ago. On a clean page, I wrote, here is what is real. Then I forced myself to list facts, not feelings. I did not cause her cancer. I spent 5 years as an unpaid caregiver. I drained my savings and destroyed my credit. She stayed silent when my siblings mocked me. She has 3 other children and resources to hire help. Her letter contains no apology, only demands. I have rebuilt a life that doesn't revolve around their approval. I read those lines out loud until they felt more solid than the guilt. Sophie called that night. Did you get something from Mom? The letter, I confirmed. Marcus and Claire copies. They think you're going to come back now. Marcus literally said, Olivia always caves when someone really needs her. Something in my chest hardened at that. Always caves. They'd studied me like an equation and knew exactly which buttons to push. What are you going to do? Sophie asked. I looked at my list of facts. I'm going to choose myself again. She's going to tell everyone you abandoned her. She already tells everyone I moved away for work instead of admitting I left because of how they treated me, I said. She's been rewriting the story this whole time. I'm just refusing to play the role she wrote for me. That week, I composed a message. Not to my mother, I still had her blocked, but to Sophie, to pass along word for word. I hope you take care of your health and find the support you need. I'm not able to step back into a caregiving role. Marcus, Claire, and Sophie are capable of coordinating your care, and there are professional services available. I wish you peace and recovery. Short, bounded, final. Sophie read it and said, she's going to lose her mind. Probably, I agreed, but I'm not responsible for managing her emotions anymore. The response came through Sophie 2 days later. She cried. Then she called you ungrateful. Then she told her friends you abandoned her in her time of need. But Liv? She also stopped asking for your number. I think some part of her knows you mean it this time. I wouldn't pretend it felt victorious. It felt heavy and sad and strangely calm all at once. There's a specific kind of grief that comes with choosing your own peace over a relationship you spent your whole life trying to fix. It doesn't cancel out the hurt. It just makes you human. A month after I sent my boundary through Sophie, I wrote one last blog post. Not anonymous this time. My name, my face, my full story. I wrote about the package, about reading my mother's words and choosing not to let them pull me back into a role that had nearly destroyed me. I wrote about how it's possible to hope someone gets better without volunteering to be their medicine. I ended with something that felt like the truest thing I'd learned. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself, and strangely, for them, is to step out of a role that was killing you. Love doesn't always mean access. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Family shouldn't be built on guilt and unpaid debts, but on respect and choice. You are allowed to build a new definition of family with people who don't need you to bleed to prove your loyalty. When I hit publish, I didn't feel triumph. I felt finished. Like I'd finally told the complete story, not just the parts that made me look good or them look bad, but the complicated truth of how love and harm can exist in the same house. The post got shared, not as viral as the first one, but enough. Enough that people I'd spoken to at events reached out. Enough that a literary agent contacted me about turning my essays into a book about caregiver economics and family trauma. Enough that my mother's friends definitely saw it. Sophie called. Mom knows it's you now. Like, knows. Someone sent her the post with your byline. And? I asked. She's furious. But also, I don't know. She seems smaller somehow, like she finally gets that you're not coming back. How's she doing, health-wise? Marcus hired a care coordinator. Claire's paying for half the medical bills. I'm doing the weekend shifts. It's hard, but we're managing. She asks about you sometimes. Not in a mean way. More like she's confused about how this happened. I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to explain it to her one more time, to make her understand. But I'd spent enough of my life trying to make people see what they were determined not to see. Tell her I hope she recovers, I said. And that I mean that genuinely. She probably won't believe you. That's okay. I know my own truth now. After we hung up, I walked out onto my small balcony. Pittsburgh stretched out in front of me, city lights starting to flicker on as the sun set. Somewhere out there were the clients I'd helped avoid my fate, the families I'd taught to value their caregivers before it was too late. I thought about the girl I'd been at 23, moving back home with dreams deferred and love to give. I thought about the woman at 28, sitting in a lawyer's office learning her 5 years equaled 5%.